Hey there, Monday. Welcome to it. He's Vince. I'm Sean. It's IB Nation Sports Talk, and we, of course, are up and rolling. Hope everybody had a great Mother's Day weekend.
That's right.
How about you, Vince? How was yours?
The Mother's Day part was good. Got to celebrate my wife and the extended family, so it was fun. A lot of gifts, a lot of handmade gifts. That's usually what Mother's Day is all about. I'm sure you remember those days with the handmade gifts going to your wife.
Yes.
A lot of coasters and pictures and things of that nature. But Mom seemed to be pretty happy, and so it was good. How about you?
Yeah, it was good for the most part. I took my wife out to dinner Saturday night, and then we went to breakfast Sunday morning, and she was feeling pretty good most of the day. We went to see a movie, Blackberry, by the way. Have you heard of it?
No, I have not, actually.
I had not heard of it before the weekend. It is about the rise and fall of the BlackBerry, and it is
Really?
actually what you'd call a dramedy, so like some comedy / drama in there. It was pretty good, though. It was pretty good.
Anybody I know in it? Like, is it or was it just
the only guy? No, well, a couple guys, I guess. Actually, the main guy. I'm trying to think of what all he's been in. He was in. Have you ever seen the movie This Is the End comedy?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, he was in that. I think his name is Steve Baruchel. He's been in, some different comedies and stuff like that, like with Seth Rogen and those kind of guys. But anyway, sidetrack. It's worth seeing anyway.
Okay.
The Blackberry movie. But then yesterday afternoon, into the evening, my wife started feeling ill. We're pretty sure she's got food poisoning.
Oh, jeez.
Or she had food poisoning. I think she's feeling a little bit better now. She was actually just getting home as I was walking in here to start the show. But I don't think it's from breakfast yesterday. And I won't say where we went, but I think it is from dinner. Not yesterday, but the day before yesterday. And we went to dinner not yesterday, but the day before yesterday at a place not too far from where you live. Not yesterday, but the day before yesterday.
Yeah, I think I'm picking up what you're laying down there, and that's too bad. That's kind of surprising, actually, that type of place would do that, because it's a nice place.
Yeah. But
just drove by there, actually.
We can't say for sure, but it sure does seem like it. Anyway,
the timing fits, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
That was very. Now that I'm going back on what you were saying, you're very blunt with how you were going about that. I think it took me a second to pick it up.
Derek,
why is he saying this twice?
Derek says he loved his BlackBerry along with the mouse and ball on it. Did you ever have a BlackBerry? I never did.
I never had one. I wasn't like BlackBerry's always
important enough back then.
Yes, exactly. It always seemed like they were being used by like corporate people. They always use BlackBerries in all of the like the West Wing type shows that I would always watch, like the political dramas. They were always using BlackBerries. I was never that cool, never that important, never had a BlackBerry. I don't know if that's something that they still use in the White House, but like I remember very vividly in the series The West Wing, they used BlackBerries, and they had to when they switched over to the president, they had to turn theirs in and then get, the whole thing. And I want to say also in Designated Survivor, they all use BlackBerries as well. So I don't know if that's
now, isn't Designated Survivor a relatively new show?
Within the last, 5 or so years, I want to say.
I forgot Glenn Howerton. If anybody watches It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Glenn Howerton is one of the It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Okay.
Who's the other one? So a couple of, again, like no real big name guys, but it was pretty. There was one distracting thing, and I won't give it away. And I can't find the rating for it. Salty asked what the rating was, and I can't find the rating. Let me see if I can find it here
For the movie?
real quick. Yeah.
Oh, it's an R.
Is it an R? Okay.
Nope.
And it's basically for language. I think
Okay,
there
gotcha.
were probably a few F-bombs. That's like the only,
Sure.
no craziness other than that. So,
Fair enough.
but yeah, it was worth seeing. I thought.
Father David Penny says, when I was lobbying, I had one. Everyone on Parliament Hill had one. iPhone was seen as unprofessional. Isn't that interesting?
So the BlackBerry actually lasted because it starts the movie. I think it starts in like 95 or 96 when these two guys are, just designing the BlackBerry, and then kind of goes through the rise, how they're pitching it and how it sort of
Okay.
evolved. And then the tail end is you've got Steve Jobs up on the stage, if you remember that, when he was doing the rollout, like describing to people what the iPhone was going to be and stuff like that. And they actually fired. No, well, I don't know that they fired him or the guy left. He was sort of forced out. One of the two guys who developed and designed whatever the BlackBerry. So he was kind of forced out. And they did like the kind of postscripts at the end where they put up on screen, like
what happened to
what happened to people and stuff like that. That guy sold all his stock and is silently one of the like richest people in the world as a result, because he sold his stock before the iPhone came out, and like he got out, and then this like the other co-founder kind of sunk, went down with the ship until 2012 when things were going down. But I think they said that like BlackBerry had like 90+% of the market at its peak, and now it has zero. There is zero
Blackberries.
Right,
wow. Yeah. Everybody's to the iPhone.
Yep. Yeah, that's who Jim Balsillie is not one of the guys who developed it. He was the Glenn Howerton character, male pattern baldness guy, actually, like to describe it, because the other two guys had very like crazy hair. But Balsillie is he was the CEO, but he sort of like worked his way in after the other two guys had actually designed the BlackBerry. No. But anyway,
I had no idea they made a movie about the BlackBerry. Had no idea.
Yeah, I didn't either until this weekend, and looked it up. I heard about it, and then we Googled it, and it was getting like really good reviews and stuff like that. And so we're like, what the heck? We got a couple hours.
You guys are movie people. Like, you guys do the movie scene. I'm impressed by that.
As it's like tougher and tougher to find something good all the time, just because of the lack of. Yeah, I mean, everything's on streamers now. I'd still rather experience it the first time in a theater if I can.
Oh, absolutely. And
I like two other people in the movie theater with us too.
Well, but that's the thing though. Like for my wife specifically, I need to take her to a theater, because if I don't, her attention span is zero. Like she'll get up and do
sounds
stuff.
Like this house. It's like could you just
sit
and watch when we're supposed to be watching?
It takes like 4.5 hours to watch like a 2-hour movie. I'm constantly paused and just waiting. And I was like, come on, you're killing me. So I mean, it's worth the money to go sit in a theater. No distractions. Just we're watching.
Yep. Yeah, Jason was talking about BlackBerry after the Palm Pilot, and the Palm Pilot guy made a little. Cary Elwes, by the way, from The Princess Bride.
I know him.
Yep. He was he had a small role in there as the Palm Pilot guy trying to buy out BlackBerry. Yeah.
The Palm Pilot. Wow, that's old school right there.
I know. And that's with the little stylus,
Yes.
I remember all those, like I said, I was never important enough to have any of that. My wife said she had a BlackBerry once, and I don't even remember it. It just kind of came and went. Yeah.
She's important. She's a nurse, right? So she's way more important than you and me. Nobody needs to get a hold of us.
All of my emails could wait, I guess.
Well, that's a really good point, actually, because that's probably why the BlackBerry was so widely used at the time, because of the email thing. Like,
yeah, it was the first one. It was the first phone of its kind. Obviously you could text from the other phones, but it was the first one where you could have the internet where you
makes
send and
sense.
receive emails
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
That makes perfect sense. It's just, yeah,
Yep.
had the full keyboard on there. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, and that's like the BlackBerry
Yeah.
guy, like in the movie, they're patting themselves on the back all the time. It's like, we've got the full keyboard. And then when they rolled out the iPhone, they're like, why would anyone want a phone without a keyboard on it? And it's like, of course, you
Crazy.
look back now and you're going, why would anyone want a phone with the keyboard
Right.
on it and not
It
have?
was so wide. It was like a
Mhm.
rectangle. Like, yeah.
Yep.
Crazy.
BlackBerry failed to adapt with the way of the dinosaur.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, what do you say we talk some football after all?
Yeah, there's been a
We
lot
did
going on here the last
movie
few
and
days.
dinner reviews. Yes,
I
that's
know,
right.
seriously, right?
Even after all that, smash the like button if you would. I'll still ask you to do it. We would appreciate it, of course, and of course, subscribe, rate, and review. Big weekend for Notre Dame. All kinds of recruiting stuff going on, and the one that's going to have the most immediate impact, of course, is the grad transfer, the safety,
Yeah.
Antonio Carter. Got him from Rhode Island. He played cornerback and nickel
Mhm.
at Rhode Island, but he's going to bolster the safety position. This is what
Sure.
they've been looking for. He was also recruited by LSU, Florida, Texas A&M, Iowa, Ole Miss, Washington, on and on and on. Wisconsin was one that was in pretty solid on him. A whole bunch of other schools that were in on Carter. So that's kind of what we wanted to talk a little bit about today. Is now the impact that he is going to have on Notre Dame secondary. First, just maybe some of your thoughts on this guy. 6'1", a little over 200 pounds, Antonio Carter.
Well, from what I was able to gather, he was basically the number one, we'll just call him secondary piece that was out there in the transfer portal. I mean, he was wanted by all the big boys. And it started out small and it kind of gained some traction. And, Notre Dame was actually late to the party getting in on this thing. It sounded like he was kind of headed for Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And then Notre Dame got involved, and it was a battle to even get him on campus. But as soon as they did, it sounds like Notre Dame did a great job of just shutting it down and getting his commitment. Because when he came to campus, he was still planned on going to LSU, and he still planned on going to a couple of other spots. And he canceled all of those visits and was committed to Notre Dame by Friday. So, kudos to Notre Dame, seeing the big fish, going after it, and securing that commitment. I mean, from a purely depth perspective, from a Notre Dame fit perspective, I mean, we know how deep they are at corner. We know that, corner's pretty much locked down. There's not a whole lot of wiggle room there. We know that he played corner primarily at Rhode Island, but the biggest thing, and he talks about it in his article that Brian wrote over on irishbreakdown.com, is that he's versatile. His versatility is one of the things that made him so sought after by all of these schools, whether they were looking for a corner, a nickel, a dime, a safety, whatever. He kind of fits all of that. And so he's going to bolster the depth at Notre Dame. And I think that's the most important part, whether it's at nickel, whether it's at safety. I think he's probably primarily going to be a safety. I mean, he's not Benjamin Morrison. He's not Cam Hart, right? And so I don't think that they need him at corner, although
I mean, he gives you depth across the board just
Exactly.
because of his versatility.
And that's
in
what
a
I was
pinch,
gonna
he
say.
can play. He
Yeah.
can play anywhere, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think right now he'll be the fourth safety. Now, does that mean the fourth safety, like as in number 4? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that he's the fourth viable safety that they can play at this point. And of course, excuse me, that's not taking into account Thomas Harper, who I think is also considered a quote unquote safety, although we think that he's going to be a nickel. But we know that Carter can play nickel. He can play safety. It's going to be interesting to see kind of where he fits best into this defense. He adds depth across the board. And I think that's huge when you're looking at a guy who I think the most important part of this whole thing is that he's got 2 years of eligibility.
Yes.
To
As
me,
Bill Walsh just brought up,
that's by far the most important thing, because whether he's an impact player this year or not, he can potentially be an impact player next year.
Well, you can essentially bring everybody but DJ Brown back next year. Well, and Thomas Harper as well.
Thomas Harper, right.
of the guys who are back there who we really can, think are going to be the safeties, like you'd bring everybody but DJ Brown back, and then you have Minnick and you have Schuler as well, depending on what they become. So like you've got such a veteran presence, you've got a guy with all this experience, and then like you said, the versatility that you talked about. So he just seems like a great piece. And he's not huge, but he reminds me a little bit of Alohi Gilman, just like the physicality that he has. That was something with Alohi was,
Sure.
so good coming downhill and, tackling and all that stuff. And I think that's something that Carter can be as well. And Carter's a couple inches taller. He's not quite as, like Gilman, I think was like right around 200 pounds. Carter is in the 180s, like 187 is what he's listed at coming out of Rhode Island, but he's 6'1", so he's a little bit bigger, but again, like when you look at, kind of some of the length that he has, but the physicality, I think, is what pops as well, which makes him really suited to play that safety position. So
I did want to bring this up from our buddy Ramlak. He says, how is this guy that much more versatile than Barnes? The biggest difference is he's got a ton of experience.
Just the experience.
It's an experience factor, and he's got 2 years of eligibility. He's going to be around a while.
He can play nickel. He can play nickel. He can play cornerback. Right. Whereas Ryan Barnes has practiced in those positions, but he hasn't actually played there.
Right. And so again, they could both play. I mean, I'm not saying this isn't like an in place of Barnes situation, but they had 4 scholarships to hand out. So they, you might as well give one to a guy that's got a ton of experience and that all these top schools wanted. Bring him into the fold, man. You were not ready to roll into the season with what you had. Bring him in and let them compete with each other. And he's right. Yeah. By the way, I don't know what happened. I was fine all day, and I sit down here, and all of a sudden, I can't stop sniffling.
I'm sitting here, and it's like, man,
my bad.
Did a cat roll it? Like, what's going on?
It's springtime, baby. All the pollen's out there, and it's all coming to get me. I was outside most of the day. And it kind of got me a little bit, but I was fine until I sat down. So maybe I'm allergic to my basement. I don't know what the deal is.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I mean,
like to hit the mute button.
Like I was talking about the physicality and Siggy saying he hits like a truck, and really, I don't think we've seen that since Alohi Gilman. Yeah, in terms of the safeties here,
60 plus tackles, I believe, in 2022, if I remember correctly, without looking it up.
He's been corner,
right, and he's been at that 50, 60 plus tackle range the last couple of years, which is awesome. And I realize the level that he played on, but a lot of the guys at the level that he played on, the conference that he played in, are playing D1 football right now and having success. So, yes, does it translate completely? No, but I can tell you what a good tackler looks like, right? I mean, I don't care what level it is. I can tell when a guy takes a good angle, when a guy knows how to wrap up, when a guy knows how to tackle in space, when he's not afraid to stick his nose in there. It doesn't matter to me, the level of competition. You either can or you can't tackle. This kid can tackle. And so that does amp up the versatility that he has as well.
Absolutely, and we'll touch more on that versatility here in a second. I'm curious, like the big question now that we're addressing today: does adding Carter? They already had a good secondary, but the biggest thing we were concerned about is this safety spot and whether they were going to be able to add some more experience, and now they've got it. So, do you think that this truly makes Notre Dame's secondary championship caliber now?
It gives them the opportunity to be championship caliber. I still think the corners are. I think Hart and Morrison are championship caliber, 100%. I think I wish we would have been able to see Harper during the spring, so I could like get my eyes on him and kind of see him running around. We didn't really have that opportunity, so I can't really speak to the nickel position. I think Xavier Watts can play at a championship level. I'm not sure about DJ Brown, Ramon Henderson, and now you throw into the mix Antonio Carter. I think there's still some question marks out there, but I do think they have the possibility of being a championship level secondary. They got the outside. Now they got to get the rest.
And again, like if I'm using Alohi Gilman as the example, we really didn't know. Like you knew that Alohi had some experience at Navy when he was coming to Notre Dame. Of course, he had to sit out a year because the transfer, when he wasn't a graduate transfer, but the transfer rules were different back then. But
Sure.
Alohi really elevated the entire secondary with that kind of play, like especially like when it was him first it was him and Jalen Elliott, and then of course Kyle Hamilton came along and it went to a whole different level. But so we really didn't know to the full extent what they were going to get from Alohi Gilman. It turned out to be quite a bit. And so like when you look at, does this make Notre Dame a championship caliber secondary? I think they're really close now.
Yeah.
Again, because of the versatility that he brings, because of the experience that he brings, and like you said, with Cam Hart and Benjamin Morrison, the corners are in great shape. Jaden Mickey, like look at all the depth you have all of a sudden. And like you said, it would have been nice to see Thomas Harper. Again, what did he have at Oklahoma State? Probably more experience, I think, than what even Carter has coming in the door. So like
at least
he had
D1
recover.
experience too. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
important. That's important, right?
In a big time passing league as well.
Sure.
In the Big 12. So like between those two, like what you can do now in terms of the nickel, like as well as like I was kind of just alluding to with the Elliott, Gilman, Hamilton, you can get into some different things now because of the numbers of guys and the versatility they have. You can show one thing and end up doing something else at the snap of the football. Like if you have Xavier Watts, Thomas Harper, and Carter on the field at the same time, and even Brown and or Henderson could be in the depending on what the situation is, dime package, whatever it happens to be. So I think it just really brings it up because again, when you've got a guy with the coverage skills that he has, as well as the fact that he's a pretty sure tackler, which is something that's kind of been lacking from this defense as well. Sort of I won't go as far as calling him an eraser at the back end, but at the same time, someone who can clean some things up, if there's a missed tackle in front of him. I think it elevates this secondary to, again, like at least college football playoff type level, right around there.
It definitely gives O'Leary and Golden some versatility on the back end. There's no doubt about that. I agree with you completely. And look, one of the things that Notre Dame sold Carter on was the fact that it's championship. Like their goal is a championship. Their goal isn't to be a 10-win team. Their goal is to win a championship, and that is Carter's goal as well. He wanted to go to a school that has a shot at winning the national championship, and that's the goal at Notre Dame. And then you add on top of that the fact that he is a graduate and he wants to get his master's degree from Notre Dame. He's a high academic kid, and I think that's important to understand as well. He's a fit across the board at Notre Dame. He's ready to come in and compete and be a part of a national championship run. And I think Notre Dame hit all the right chords, right? They hit them all with him, and that's why he committed as quickly as he did. He showed up on Wednesday, committed by Friday, and canceled all the rest of his visits. So, I mean, he's all in on Notre Dame because I think they're all in on winning the national championship, and that's why they were able to get this high-quality player / academic piece into school at the University of Notre Dame.
And it sounded like there was just a really good vibe with the coaching staff as well, just in terms of how the coaching staff does its business and just the whole vibe of the program and campus
awesome.
and the whole thing. And I mean, he came at the right time of year as well. It's a little bit warmer up here.
That's beautiful right now.
I mean, he's from Rhode Island, so it's not like he hasn't
sure, but like
bad weather himself
this week. I mean, really, when Tuesday, Wednesday on, right? I mean, it's been about as nice as it can be up here. It's not too hot. It's not too cool. The sun's been out. Like, he picked a great time to come up here. Like, today is absolutely gorgeous. It was hardly any rain. Like, hey, touche. Notre Dame's able to show off kind of what they are a lot easier when the weather is nice like this, because you could say, hey, why don't you guys just take a walk around campus for about an hour, meet us back here, let us know I mean, how could you not fall in love with that campus on a day like today? You know what I mean? Like, it's perfect. It's perfect.
Yeah. So again, now he's the second grad transfer along with Thomas Harper. Do you think Harper is the number one nickel right now? And then Lewis, like what do you do? Because now there are some questions in terms of Harper, who, like you said, we didn't get to see because of his injury in the spring. You've got Clarence Lewis,
Sure.
who was at nickel quite a bit during the spring as a result of Harper being out. And then you also have Ryan Barnes. What do you think that sort of mix looks like? Where everyone, what everyone's role is going to be?
I think it looks like competition. I think that's what it looks like, if I'm being honest.
Which
Now,
is good as well.
Absolutely. I think that's what they want. They want high level competition at every position, right? And you've got high level corners. But there's still competition there, right? I think that the nickel, there's going to be competition. I would give Harper the, leader in the clubhouse moniker at this point. I think Clarence Lewis could give him a run for his money, obviously. And again, I don't want to say one is better than the other because I've never seen Harper in person. I want to see, kind of his cover skills and, some of those things in a Notre Dame uniform, not in an Oklahoma State uniform.
Mm-hmm.
So, I want to reserve my judgment a little bit, but I do think there's going to be an open competition for that spot. I mean, but that's the way you want it. That if you're trying to develop a championship level team, then you want that high level competition at every position. And I think that's what they're going to have at nickel, corner, and safety for that matter. And I think that is only going to make everybody better. But yeah, I do think going into the fall, they're going to give Clarence Lewis an opportunity to win that spot, right? I think they're going to give him that chance. Again, I think Harper is probably the leader in the clubhouse, but I think they're going to give Clarence an opportunity because that may be the only way he sees the field at this point without a position change.
Well, and again, because of both Harper and Carter's versatility, it's a word that we've used quite a bit already. But if Clarence Lewis shows that he can do the job as that nickel, that only opens up other possibilities to use guys like Harper, Carter, and Watts potentially all together in some different situations. It only opens more things up. Barnes seems like it would make probably sense for him to see more action at safety this fall with an eye toward next year because, I guess part of that also depends on how Schuler and Minnick look this fall because you do have those guys, and we didn't get to see any of Schuler because of his injury, and we only got to see limited Minnick before he injured his thumb and had to miss the rest of the spring. But he started off pretty well. So it just seems like that kind of makes sense right now because of where the safety position is. But I think that'll be one to keep an eye on as well.
It's always interesting to see where things are for this year and then with an eye towards next year as well, right? And I think that's one of the best parts, like I said, of bringing in a guy like Carter was that he has 2 years of eligibility. So, whether he finds an impactful role this year or not, he has a great opportunity to find that impactful role next year. Now, he's not coming in here to sit the bench. I mean, I think we can all agree on that, right? He's not coming to sit the bench, but he's coming to compete. And I think there's going to be plenty of competition. And I think the defensive coaches in the secondary specifically know how to get the best players on the field in different situations. And so whatever that situation happens to be for Carter, whether he's a starting safety across from Xavier Watts, or whether he's that third safety who comes and spells one of those guys, or whatever it is, he feels to me like a guy who's going to embrace his role and play it at a high level regardless. So that's great to hear.
But you also, for this position specifically, because this is 2 years in a row now where they've had to go get a grad transfer to play safety because of where the recruiting is going, and because you have guys like Minnick and Schuler and Derek is saying, don't leave Luke out of this conversation. You hope that this is the last time really that you have to go into the transfer portal to shore up this position because of the way the recruiting is going right now.
Absolutely. I agree with that completely. And I think the secondary is going to be in a spot, 24 and beyond, where as long as recruiting sticks to where it's at, that they won't have to go to the portal anymore. And the portal becomes a luxury at that point. Like if there's a stud in there that, you just can't say no to regardless of position and you go grab them, like that's how you'd love to use the portal, right, Sean? I mean, it's a guy that is out there that's just so good. He makes your team better, but it's not a necessity, right?
Yeah.
The portal becomes an issue at Notre Dame and anywhere, frankly, is if you're using the portal out of necessity to plug holes because you screwed up by letting a guy go or not recruiting properly or whatever. Plugging holes is very difficult to do in the portal to find the right guys.
But I mean, that's a good thing, because now as we look, there are 3 scholarships remaining that they could potentially use if they want because of the Ahrensberger retirement that we talked about last week. They had 4 they could use before Carter committed. Now he commits, so they've got 3 remaining. And really, when you look across the board now, with those 3 scholarships available, it's pretty much a luxury. Like if you did want to go out and get somebody else at any of the other positions, like the roster is in really good shape, even though you're 3 scholarships down right now.
I agree. I mean, there's no, in my opinion, glaring need anywhere. I mean,
or 3 scholarships up, I guess, whichever way you look at it.
Yeah, however you want to say it. You've got 3 scholarships that are available. I mean, that's where you're at. And I mean, there's some places where you wouldn't mind a luxury piece, right? But like, I don't want a running back. There's some of the guys in the chat are talking about, oh, we missed out on this running back or that. They don't need a running back. They had too many and 1 left, and I think they're okay.
I think you just lean on the walk-ons in practice.
Sure.
Like for games themselves, the only way that becomes an issue, obviously, is if you get a lot of guys end up.
You're not playing. You're not playing. Yeah, barring injury, you're not playing more than 3 running backs in a game. I mean, you're just really not. They've got 4 really talented running backs in that room starting in June. I'm good with it. I'm good with running back. Again, if a guy is out there that they
here's
think
Chi-Town's question before you get into that. Which 3 positions would you add ideally? I mean, to me, it's hard. I don't see a pressing, like running back is the only one really.
And see, that doesn't even do anything for me.
It's still more a body, I think, than anything. Which, because
maybe a high-level tight end.
When you look at guys who are in the transfer portal, you're always going to tell them you're going to come in and compete. Yeah, tight end might be the only one right now, just because, and that's going to depend on what the health of guys like Rhode and Bauman and those guys are looking like. Do they think they're going to come back? If they think they're going to come back, then there's no reason to. I think they feel pretty good about the tight ends. But like if there was a tight end with a lot of experience who you felt like could come in, but that's the thing with what makes it so difficult. Like we've talked about, well, you'd want to go out and find yourself an experienced quarterback. Well, how many experienced quarterbacks with a year or 2 of eligibility are just going to want to come in on the premise that they know they're going to sit and be an emergency quarterback if something happens to Sam Hartman?
Right. And that's the thing. You gotta be straight with them. If you can find a grad transfer who is, has got 2 years of eligibility left, for example. Okay. I think that's the perfect number for that type of position. And this is one that with my 3 scholarships, this is what I would at least task somebody in the recruiting office to find a guy that might, check these boxes, right? Yeah. I would say, hey, is there a guy maybe from the Ivy or from someplace? Okay. He's got 2 years of eligibility left. He's a graduate. We can promise him a master's degree from the University of Notre Dame. We're not planning on you starting this year. You're going to hold a clipboard. We'll give you every opportunity next year to compete for the position, to compete at, for the quarterback position. So, you're going to sit, you're going to learn the playbook. If something drastic happens to Sam Hartman, then you may have to be pressed into action, but you'll have an opportunity to compete for the job next year. Okay. That's a very narrow box, obviously, that you're going to have to find, because I do think regardless, they're going to have to go get a quarterback for next year from a numbers standpoint. I think you got to get somebody next year. If you can find that guy this year with 2 years, then I think you're in great shape. So that would be one for sure. Maybe a tight end would be the other one. And then, a big nose.
Well, seeing like
interior
guys are
lineman.
talking about interior linemen, it's like they've got 17 defensive linemen on scholarship right now. For right now, do you need another, especially the way Jason Onye came on? I don't know.
A lot of those guys don't exist in the portal though, too. Like those big space eating, nose tackles, they just don't really exist in the portal. Now, I'm not a portal expert, and there's literally thousands of players in there. But generally, those guys don't exist. And if they do, they're going to be ripped out of there so fast with a blank check, or they already know where they're going to go, like the kid from Georgia who transferred out and ended up at USC the next day. Like, that was pretty planned. That was already going to happen. So it would be interesting. And you know what? At the end of the day, reward one of your walk-ons. I don't have a problem with that either. Reward one of your walk-ons. Maybe that walk-on quarterback. There's a million different places you could go.
I don't know what he's going to amount to, but Cole Aubrey, the guy who's coming in from Princeton, he'll be here this summer, and he's coming in played at Princeton for the last few years, and just he's going to walk on here at Notre Dame. Maybe, if he shows himself both this summer and in fall training camp, and he's looking like he can actually go out and do something, he might be somebody that you reward with a scholarship, because
absolutely
he's coming here completely, again, with some experience, probably could have gone to some smaller programs and got a scholarship right away, but he's walking in the door, paying his own bill.
Yeah.
Maybe he's someone who could earn one at some point.
Absolutely. To me, I feel like there's a lot of options for scholarship opportunities for guys that are already on your roster. There's plenty of guys that I would consider with those. Now, again, if the right guy shows up and is somebody that you want to go out and get, then you go out and get them. But I think this roster's in pretty good shape. I really do. I think this roster's in good shape right now.
And the 24 recruiting class is ranked second in the country right now.
And they just got another recruit this morning. So
again, filling in the ranks. Every year, I think that these kind of issues are going to get a little bit smaller. The biggest issue that we've talked about is you're going to have some attrition, from year to year, just because guys are going to want to go someplace and get some opportunity. This is an interesting stat. D-Rock Irish says he heard in one of the podcasts, 70% of the players in the portal haven't seen one snap yet. And probably 90% of those guys are from Colorado. As a Notre Dame fan,
are those the guys that you want to go get? The guys that have left a school because they're disgruntled because they haven't played.
Notre Dame needs experience is what they need.
Exactly. That's not the kind of guy that Notre Dame needs right now, unless it's maybe somebody that they recruited, that they know a lot about or whatever, then maybe you make an exception. But they want guys that have played, hence Carter, right? He's a 4-year player. He's got 2 years of eligibility left. He's the guy that you want at Notre Dame because he's got the experience. He's going to come in and compete right away.
I concur. So you're not in any bigger hurry than I am right now to go out and try to fill those 3 scholarships. Yeah.
Now I'm sure I'll get a call from Brian or Ryan. They'll be like, no, they got to go get this guy or something like that. But as I look through the roster, I just don't see where the portal is going to make your roster better than the guys you already have.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like right now Notre Dame is done with the portal, unless some very special circumstance would jump out at them. I just don't think that they're going to.
And you always have to be ready for that. And I wouldn't be just.
And it can happen in the summer still. You just don't know.
You don't give those scholarships away until August. Once you start camp and you realize, okay, portal's closed, we're done now. But so you hold on to them through the summer to see, but nobody else can jump in. There's the portal's closed. Whoever's going to be in is in, right? And so the landscape, who's in there. I don't see it. I don't see it. The good players are gone. The good players are gone.
Yep. Vincenzo, are you ready for rapid fire?
You know I'm ready, baby. I love rapid fire. I need me some rapid fire right now. It's been a long day. It's been a long day. Need me some rapid fire.
All right. Fill in the blank. Antonio Carter, of course, committed to Notre Dame on his visit to campus over the weekend, despite the fact that he was still scheduled to visit LSU.
Yes, he was.
LSU even had to cancel a car service. They had a car ready to pick up Antonio Carter, take him to the airport, and fly him down to Baton Rouge. All that, Vince, is
crazy. Good on Notre Dame. I mean, he was planning, like I said, he was planning on doing all these other things. It's also good on Notre Dame, by the way. And I don't think I'm giving anything away at this point because I did read it on the message board. Notre Dame told the car service to go away, which I thought was awesome. They didn't
tell the car service. Apparently, they called LSU and told LSU to tell the car service.
Even better. Away. Even stinking better.
It's like
awesome.
I'm thinking of Brian Kelly on his BlackBerry down there in Baton Rouge.
He still got one.
Getting the email on his BlackBerry.
That is awesome.
I love it.
Well played by Notre Dame.
Any chance you can get at this point to still throw some shade on Brian Kelly and snatch something away from Brian Kelly that Brian Kelly wanted. I mean, that's a good day, right? It's like
great day.
All that happened over the course of one weekend. You address a need. You get to, throw some shade on LSU and old BK down there. I just think it is absolutely fabulous. And the cherry on top of the whole thing is this guy, Antonio Carter, as you said, he picked Notre Dame because he wants to win a championship.
Yes.
And he didn't even go to LSU.
Oh.
He stayed here at Notre Dame because he wants to win a national championship. And LSU was out of that picture, according to Antonio.
And they're the ones picking, they're being picked number 2 in the country, just craziness, top 3, that kind of thing. And he's like, no, you know what? Right here. And you can tell that academics is important to him. I mean, yes, he wants to win a national championship. He said that. Those are his words, and that's what Notre Dame sold him on. Like, this is our goal. This is our mission. But, oh, by the way, here's a master's degree from LSU. Here's a master's degree from Notre Dame.
What's going to carry more weight?
Come on. That's not even a conversation. It's not even a conversation.
That's exactly right. That's, as they always say, it's something that's going to carry him for the rest of his life. He started at Rhode Island. He'll get to finish at Notre Dame, 2-year graduate,
And Rhode Island's no slouch academically, by the way, if I'm not mistaken. It seems to me that Rhode Island is a pretty good academic school in the first place. And so that academics are important to him. And he proved that not only from the fact that he's going to Notre Dame, of course, but then he wants to win a national championship. So it sounded like Notre Dame just absolutely hit all the right buttons with this kid, both on the field and off the field. And he couldn't say no. He couldn't even leave campus. Like everybody else away, we're putting up the caution tape around the campus. We're not letting him leave. You guys, no enter. Get away. I love it.
Yeah. Beautiful. So one of our subscribers recently posed this question on the Champions Lounge. What benefit has the ACC deal had for Notre Dame football? He said the Irish play a bunch of bottom-tier ACC football programs other than Clemson. So Vince, what do you say to that? What's the benefit that this deal has had for football specifically? Not the other sports, Notre Dame football specifically.
Well, and that's, immediately when I saw this on the Champions Lounge, a couple of weeks ago or whatever it was, my first instinct was like, look, Notre Dame is going to have to, it was a concession that they had to make in order to bring the rest of the sports into the ACC, which obviously benefits every other sport on campus besides Notre Dame. So this is the proverbial cross that Notre Dame needs to bear in order to have the rest of their sports, be a part of the ACC. And here are a couple of things. Number one, it helps with scheduling. It just does. Because most of the time these ACC games are during the middle of the year when it's very difficult to play other schools because they're all in the midst of their conference schedule. So, I mean, it helps with scheduling no matter how you slice it, okay?
You get automatic scheduling done for you.
You've got 5 games, I believe is 5, already done.
5, sometimes 6.
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
5
I mean,
typically.
basically half your schedule is already taken care of. And believe me, that's nothing to, slough at. You're an independent. Just ask BYU, okay? It's very difficult to schedule as an independent. It just is, right? You end up going to places you don't want to go to and doing things you don't want to do just to fill your schedule. Number 2, COVID. If they didn't have a relationship with the ACC,
right,
Notre Dame would not have been playing a season of football in 2020.
College football might not have been played, period.
Well,
if
good
Notre
point.
Dame and the ACC didn't have that arrangement. Just because
Good point.
remember, Big Ten, Pac-12, they had already canceled their seasons at that point. And then Notre Dame jumped in with the ACC, and everybody decided they were going to play. All the dominoes fell into place after that. The entire, remember, like ESPN, they were thanking Notre Dame for helping save college football.
And they were right. And they were right. And again, I know in light of recent events, nobody wants to say this out loud, but kudos to Jack Swarbrick because he's the one that made that happen. So that's another check in the positive box for Big Daddy Jack.
But
go ahead.
I mean, that's one of the fallbacks of this whole deal. Like you can say that you don't like the teams they play and all that. One, it was like it was essential for that 2020 season, but that's part of, part of the rationale with this was if Notre Dame came to a spot where they needed to join a conference. Now things have obviously changed since then, but that was the landing spot for Notre Dame. It gave them a fallback if they had to have a conference to go into.
Right. Yep.
Again, the landscape has completely changed since then. Everything else going around with all the money and the bad ACC deal. And I guess they're doing their ACC meetings out there early this week.
Okay.
I think it's in North Carolina or something like that. And there's like seven ACC schools that are trying to figure out a way to get out of that grant of rights deal, that TV contract.
I'm sure there
are. For
are.
another 13 years.
I'm sure there are.
Yeah, I mean, you get ACC football money out of this. So that's something. It's another source of revenue.
Good point.
And that's important. Like they get a piece of that ACC contract because of the fact that they're playing these games. They do get a handful of high profile games out of this as well. Sure. They obviously play Clemson, like this will be the third time in the last 4 years this year that they played Clemson in the regular season. And they obviously played them in the ACC championship game in that year in 2020 as well, and like bigger picture year in and year out, the 5 games that Notre Dame plays against the ACC give them 5 Power 5 opponents that are generally, they're not too tough. Like they're good, but they're not so good that you're going to throw yourself out of championship contention. You're going to have Power 5 teams on the schedule, and odds are every year they might not be top 10, but they're at least going to be top 25. So when Notre Dame's strength of schedule is analyzed at the end of the season, they tend to have a top 10 schedule every year. And the ACC is part of that. Even though they're not all, necessarily elite, Notre Dame still has one of the best strength of schedules in the country. So it might not appear that it does them a lot of good, but it actually it keeps them competitive in terms of college football playoff year in and year out. And again, they do have some high profile games, like the Clemson games, Florida State, obviously, even Miami in 2017, like Miami ended up beating them, unfortunately, and Miami's not on the schedule that regularly, but it's like the schedule is tough, but not too tough, and the affiliation lets them fill in the rest of their schedule, like with the USCs and Stanfords and Navies, and then you plug it in with Wisconsin and Ohio State and whoever else you want to plug in there. And so it's just, I think you kind of said it. It is good every year, even though maybe it doesn't, on its face seem like it is. So there's actually, I think, a lot of good things that come out of it.
And their scheduling has been just fine. I mean, they're right in the midst of this ACC deal, right? Does anybody think their schedule this year isn't a top 10 schedule across the board? Are you kidding me?
Right.
Ohio State, Clemson, USC, like that's a pretty good schedule, right? And one of those is an ACC opponent that was already on your schedule, and then they went out and got the other two. So the schedule's fine. Are there some times where, it's not always going to be a top 10 battle? Like, do people think if Notre Dame is independent that they're going to go out and schedule the top 2 SEC teams, the top 2 Big Ten teams? That's not how you do. What
would be the incentive in that? That's
right.
Because again, this helps Notre Dame's path to the college football playoff.
100%.
And again, like with these 5 teams from the ACC, they're also going to play some out of conference teams, obviously, as well as teams within their own conference. And then Notre Dame is going to have USC and Stanford, plus another higher end, Power 5 team every year. And it actually gives Notre Dame a balanced resume
right
at the end of the season, that like when teams are comparing resume, or, when the committee is comparing resumes and things like that, it actually works in Notre Dame's favor, because obviously you play an opponent, that opponent plays other opponents.
Sure.
And so that gives them sort of a cross-checking for you when they're looking at your resume. It's again, I know it's not always the sexiest thing, but you're absolutely right. Like, they're not going to go out and play a Michigan and an Alabama and a Texas, those teams every year
happen.
if Notre Dame were to be truly independent. It's just, they're not going to do it, because the goal is to get to the playoff. You don't have to play that kind of schedule every year. And by doing this with the ACC, you're still playing Power 5 teams.
And then additionally to that, you have the ACC bowl tie-ins as well. Because if Notre Dame is independent, you've got basically the New Year's Six and the playoff, and then nothing. I mean, realistically.
See, here's the thing too. Like Chi-Town is saying, you could play your traditional rivals more often. I just think that is going to get harder and harder, because
Big Ten's going to be full.
With the Big Ten expanding and the SEC expanding, it's going to get even harder if you were a true independent to put together a schedule that even comes close to what you're talking about. And again, just because of the fact that those conference schedules are going to be so full, they're going to be lucky if they've got like 2 open dates.
And they're not going to pick Notre Dame for those open dates.
Right.
I hate to break everybody. I hate to break it down for everybody, but
the conferences are getting madder and madder at Notre Dame as they expand, because they want Notre Dame. And they're not going to pick Notre Dame.
Right. They're going to pick, the Citadel and teams like that, because they need layups, right? Alabama always has 2 ridiculous layups on their schedule. And if they have to play 9 conference games, then they're going to pick 2 crappy teams for their non-conference. That's what's going to happen. Every couple of years, maybe they do a kickoff classic against a Texas or something crazy like that, right? But that's not going to happen very often. It's just not.
Chi-Town says he misses Purdue, and I'll be honest, that's the one that I miss the least. And it's not just because, like, when Notre Dame played Purdue, obviously not this past season, but 2 seasons ago, I guess that was in 2021. I don't miss the nastiness from Purdue fans. And I don't know how much you noticed it, Vince, but there was just such a stepbrother attitude going through the parking lot. It's just, I dealing with Purdue fans every year, I hated it. I hated it.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you
even more so than Michigan fans.
I feel like you're propping up Purdue. I mean, I don't know. The
And
Purdue
we had to deal
rivalry
with
used
their
to be
stupid
better.
big drum and all that.
Oh, that was ridiculous. They were so butthurt about that damn
Mhm.
drum. Gosh, who cares about a stupid drum? If that's what you have, that's your thing, is a giant drum. Like, come on, man. Plant your flag someplace else.
Chi-Town says, feels so good to beat them. And it's just, I don't know. Like, that's one of those games that's like you expect to win. And when it's close, it just makes it even feel nastier. It seems like, I don't know. Fill in the blank. Audric Estime tweeting 2 simple words, "I'm coming," last night is blank.
I love it. It's awesome. I freaking love it. It is a competitor talking. He's not going to trash talk. He's just going to let you know that the train is coming, and you better try to get the license plate of that Mack truck when he runs your you know what over. Like, I love it. He plays with a pretty sizable chip right here on his shoulder, and it's a pretty broad landing place on his shoulder. And I love a running back. Like, I always told my running backs, when I was coaching, I want you to run like you're pissed off. Like, that's the kind of running back I want. You run like you're pissed all the time. Like, that's what I want. And then you could be a nice guy off the field. You could be a great human. But when you're between the lines, I want you to run mad. That's what Audric Estime is. He runs mad. And I am here for it. I love it.
He needs a nickname, because I feel like he's saying I'm going beast mode is basically what he's saying when he says
he is.
I'm coming. And it's like he needs a good nickname. We need to come up with a nickname for him, like the Estime Quake or so. I don't know what it is, but like
that's not good.
I just threw that off the top of my head.
I know. We have to come up with something because obviously the bus is taken.
Yeah.
So you can't go down that road. Mack truck, that's a little bit too generic.
Yeah.
They had 33 trucking, back in the day.
Didn't
can't obviously go down that road. Although I like the apparel and the swag that they had for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're gonna have to think about that because
A-Train.
Oh, okay.
Decaf.
That might be
A-Train, baby.
I think we might need to start rolling that one out. All proceeds go to Decaf 18 and his family's college fund.
Chi-Town said Estime engine. That's a good one as well.
Too many syllables.
That's true. A-Train, direct to the point. I think I just unplugged myself.
I can hear you.
Cord tonight for some reason.
Oh, it's from your headphones. Okay.
It's your headphones. My hands around too much. I keep hitting my cord.
So I can hear you fine.
The A-Train is coming.
Yes.
And it is about to run you over.
Yes.
That's it.
Put the merch together.
Perfect.
The A-Train. And I think we need to message him. Be like, look, man, NIL money. A-Train. Get the merch ready.
That's right, baby.
Well done.
I love it.
Done.
Decaf. You get the award. If I had something to give you, I'd give it to you. The guy averaged almost 6 yards a carry last year. 28th in the nation. And Bijan Robinson only averaged like 0.2 of a yard per carry more than him, and like A-Train. That's it.
I like it.
I love it. I love it quite a bit. All right. The Ram. Not bad.
Yeah, that's not bad. It's not bad.
I like that because he is a battering ram.
Right.
I just think A-Train's going to be hard to beat.
Yeah, that's a good one, man.
This needs to catch on. Audric, the A-Train Estime. I mean, it's perfect. It's better than Baby Gronk.
Oh, that was horrible. I hated that one, and I'm pretty sure he hated it too.
Yeah.
I mean, he ended up rolling with it because he couldn't get rid of it, but I did I was hoping he would change his number or something. That way people would get off of the Baby Gronk nonsense.
Yeah.
But alas, here we are.
Let's shift gears. A little Notre Dame baseball. They're 29-19 after sweeping 3 games from Akron over the weekend. They've got a game tomorrow, the game against Northwestern at Wrigley. Then they finish the regular season with 3 games at Boston College, one of which, of course, will be at Fenway. But then they'll go to the ACC tournament as well, Memorial Day weekend. So, Vince, what do you think they need to do to secure themselves an at-large NCAA tournament bid?
A lot is the short answer. I think, they got the sweep against Akron, but I think everybody anticipated they should get a sweep over Akron.
This was squeak at least one of them.
This was their bye weekend in the ACC, obviously.
Yeah.
I think, first of all, I think it's awesome that they get to play at Wrigley and Fenway in the same week. I mean, that's friggin' awesome.
No kidding.
So I think they got to beat Northwestern. I think they have to win the series against Boston College. 2-1, that's fine. You need to win the series. And then I think you've got to win your pool. I think you got to win your pool in the ACC tournament, and you have to at least make it to the semifinals. You need to make it to the Final Four of the ACC tournament. So that means you're one of the 4 best. Then I think you at least have a puncher's chance of getting in but they may even have to make it to the championship.
There are, and I went and looked at some of the RPI numbers and all that
Okay.
kind of good stuff. So there's a lot of numbers here. They are number 46 right now in the RPI. They're one game above 500 in the ACC. So I agree with you. Excuse me. Boston College is actually really good this year, by the way.
They're
Boston
tied
College,
with Notre Dame, though, aren't they? As far as in the conference, last time I checked.
but they've got a 13 RPI.
Okay.
That's the most important number that
All
they've
right.
got right now. And they've actually, this is one of the two best seasons that they've had in like the last 50 years, but they're 32-16. So they're, a few games, like overall, a few games better than Notre Dame. But here's what the ACC looks like right now in terms of RPI. Wake Forest is number 2. Clemson is number 8. Both of those teams won their series against Notre Dame. Virginia's number 9. The Irish swept Virginia. That's like probably the biggest thing keeping Notre Dame in at-large contention right now. They didn't play Duke this year. Duke is number 12. BC is number 13. And again, if they can take 2 out of 3 against BC, against the number 13 RPI team in the country, that would help them out quite a bit. Didn't play Miami. Miami is 18. North Carolina is 24. Notre Dame lost that series. They lost 2 out of 3. NC State, Notre Dame lost 2 out of 3 there. The Wolfpack is number 26. So, like, those are the top RPI teams in the ACC, and that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those are the top 8. And then you've got Louisville at 34. Notre Dame won 2 out of 3 there. Georgia Tech, rather, is 43. Notre Dame lost 2 out of 3. And then Notre Dame is 46. So, like, Notre Dame is sitting with the 11th best RPI right now. Now, they'll get, because of that pool play format in the ACC, they'll get to play some good teams, so that'll help. But I think they've got to win this BC series. And then, like you said, like, they need to win at least a game or 2 in the ACC tournament. They might even have to, like you said, win their pool, just because there are going to be 34 at-large bids. And when you look at where, like, the SEC is probably going to get like at least 10 teams. Some of these other conferences, like the Big Ten and the Pac-12, they're going to get multiple bids. How many is that going to leave the ACC? And when you're sitting there as Notre Dame and they don't have a really good record, like against the top 25, like top 50 type teams, they were 6-6 against the top 25. Again, opportunity against Boston College. They're 5-6, teams 51 through 100. They feasted on teams 101 through 200, but Lipscomb is 93 in the RPI. That's where Notre Dame started the season, if you remember, and they lost 2 out of 3 games there. They've lost a couple of times to Michigan State, which is 73 in the RPI. So they didn't do themselves some favors with some of the teams they lost to. They really need to beat BC this weekend. That would boost them quite a bit, and then win a couple games, I think, at the ACC tournament. I think, like, they're projected being in right now, but they're a 3 seed. Like, that's by D1baseball.com. They're a 3 seed, and like the 4 seeds in the baseball tournament, 4 seeds are like the equivalent of,
those are all the conference champions
13,
of all those small.
Yeah, exactly.
Schools, right?
That's like the equivalent of like the 13 through 16 seeds in March Madness. So they need to win some games. They've still got some work to do. So
I mean, I would love,
didn't help them.
No, it did not. And I would love to see Notre Dame in the tournament, obviously. Is it wrong?
And that's the thing, too, is the NCAA has not been kind to Notre Dame.
No, they've not done them any favors the last couple of years.
That's right.
But I'm also happy to see that Florida State isn't doing well either. That kind of makes me happy.
That's true. That's true. They're not going anywhere. And they're not going anywhere at all. So the Los Angeles Rams, of course, traded this year's and next year's first-round draft picks to get Matt Stafford. And, of course, because they got Stafford, at least in part, they ended up winning the Super Bowl last year. But they stunk this past year. I guess that was 2 years ago now at this point. My question to you, is the trade-off for the championship worth the cost of what they gave up in the long run?
Do you realize how I read this question, Sean Stiers?
I don't.
I read this question basically as a Cubs fan, where they won.
After I wrote this, I thought maybe Vince will relate this to the
I
Cubs.
do 100%. Like, was it worth? Was all the torment that I've gone through over the past couple of years worth the 2016 World Series? Yup, absolutely, no question. I would trade whatever was necessary for a championship that I got to witness. Like, the Bears haven't won a championship since 1985. I don't remember it. I was 4. Okay. So I would love for the Bears to win a championship, and you give up whatever you have to make that happen. Obviously, the Cubs hadn't won a national championship, a World Series since 1908. Clearly, I had not witnessed that.
Yes.
Witnessing the World Series, going to a World Series game was something that I will never forget for the rest of my life. And I can die a happy man that the Cubs won a World Series. Of course, I want them to win more. But you do whatever you have to do to win a title, man, because those are memories that you won't forget. So, yes, it's 100% worth it.
Double down on it. And, like, you know, as a Royals fan, it is hard to believe that it has only been 8 years since they actually won a World Series and went to back-to-back World Series. But they had gone 30 years, almost 30 years in between. And they had some of the most miserable seasons in those in-between years. And they're having a miserable season right now. But you trade it all because they've got a championship. In your lifetime, you got to see them win a championship.
Yeah.
And that's like even as much as I, complain about the Cowboys right now, at least I have memories of them winning Super Bowls
and being really
in my lifetime. And
right.
Exactly. And being really good. Like Jesse does not have that.
Oh, that's right.
So
I forget when he was born. So yeah, he doesn't have that. Wow.
I know.
That was like my whole high school career was the Cowboys being good. Like middle school, I should say. Middle school, early high school is like the Cowboys being good. And yeah, no doubt. I grew up with that. And the Bills being bad.
Yeah.
Or we're not winning Super Bowls.
That's right.
Not winning Super Bowls.
Right. Getting blown out in Super Bowls.
Yeah,
anyway.
right.
That's like your early memory.
Yes. That's when I started watching the NFL, really. The Cowboys were good. The 49ers were good. And the Bills lost in the Super Bowl a lot. Like that's my earliest memories of like the NFL. Crazy.
I know. Yeah. So to me, it is absolutely worth the trade-off. I would trade it 8 days a week. Anytime. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Bears quarterback Justin Fields had the 9th best selling jersey among NFL players this past season.
Surprising. That is surprising to me. I realize Chicago is a big city and there are a lot of Bears fans and all of that. So maybe that's part of it, right? That his jersey would be probably, the most well-known Bears jersey because the rest of the Bears aren't very good. So that would make a lot of sense. But it's still very surprising to me. I can think of many other NFL players that I would pick before him. But then again, he's fairly new. So a lot of those more popular players, maybe their jerseys, just, they're not going to keep selling necessarily, right? Because once you have one, why would you get another one? But it is surprising. I was surprised he's top 10. That kind of took me for a loop a little bit.
I was completely shocked when I saw this because, like you said, even though the Bears are, market 3 in the country, Chicago, bad team. They ended up with the number 1 pick in the draft this past season. So, that's how bad they were. But Justin Fields still had the 9th best selling jersey. It's incredible to me. I don't get it. Like you would have thought that, like when you look at the list, the guys in front of him made a lot of sense. You had Cowboys like Dak Prescott, all these different guys. You had guys from, traditional, like the Aaron Rodgers jersey, for example, and some of these other, just guys
sure
you would
expect. Blow up because he's on a new
Yeah.
team. So his number is going to go nuts.
And that'll happen as well. But like for a quarterback who really hasn't done anything for a team that stinks, I was just completely shocked to see Justin Fields at number 9
Me too.
on that list.
No, me too.
I had one thing that I wanted to ask you. I just saw this a little bit ago before the show started. Carl Ravitch on Sunday Night Baseball last night. Red Sox Tristan Cassis.
Is this the question that he asked him?
Yes. So Carl Ravitch, they're
can't-
doing an in-game interview with this guy, and Carl Ravitch says, "I know your mom passed away when you were young. What does Mother's Day mean to you and your brother?" Like, what?
This is the worst question you could possibly ask. And I will say that he handled it extremely professionally and answered it very, very well. But, dude, that's a terrible question. It's a terrible question.
And as someone who has not had his mom for, I think it's 31 Mother's Days now, myself, like, I couldn't imagine if we're on live TV and you ask me that question. Like, what are you even doing?
They're terrible.
It's like so many of these in-game interviews have actually kind of added something to the broadcast, but to throw that, like,
Terrible.
it's just a horrible, like, the worst thing I think that you could ask someone,
Right.
who's lost a parent, to be doing that in the middle of a broadcast when you're, it's like you're keeping it light. And I just, classless and clueless. Decaf said classless, and just clueless. I couldn't believe that he would ask that to a guy.
There are literally 100 other questions you could have come up with to,
Right.
and it should be loose. Like, these
It
guys
would
should
literally be the thing.
hard.
Like, Mother's Day would not be I realize they were
No.
playing on Mother's Day, but it would be like, knowing that about him, it would be the last thing that I would want to ask someone on live TV in the middle of the game.
Right. No, absolutely. And Joe says, having personally dealt with Ravitch, he just literally reads what's in front of him. Then at least have the common sense to not read that. Like, pre-read what's in front of you. Be a professional. Right. Be like, you know what? I don't think this is the one I'm going to ask. Cross it off.
Don't be Ron Burgundy.
Yeah, seriously. Don't just read what's on the teleprompter, man. Like, that's, and Joe, I get it. I know people like that. I get it. But you got to have a little bit of professionalism and know what to read and what not to read. I mean, come on. That's just, come on.
So going back to some of the topics that we just hit, we had some questions start up. Joe says, so to extrapolate, you would be okay with a national title for Notre Dame if they broke all the rules and got put on probation?
I would not.
I think that's a little different.
That's different. I'm saying, like, I guess the equivalent of Notre Dame would, like, if they went to the transfer portal, got a bunch of one-year guys who are like grad transfers or whatever, right? Yeah. But the right way, just got those guys for 1 year.
Went all in. Yeah, like a team full of Sam Hartmans out there and won a championship.
Right. And then they all left because they were out of eligibility or whatever, and then now they're going to stink for a decade. Like, that would be the equivalent for me. And yes, I would be okay with that because they did it the right way. I wouldn't be able to be like, oh no, we still won the championship, and people be like, yeah, but they cheated to do it. Like, no, that would not work for me in any way. It wouldn't.
Joe said he was taking the question to the extreme. He wouldn't either. But
yeah, I
think the question is, would you take a championship today knowing that you were going to be bad for, like, at least 5 years, like historically bad, potentially for a handful of years?
It'd be tough financially.
It'd be
for
tough,
you and me,
but I'd take the championship.
I would, because yes, the windfall of the championship would be so great, and then there would be. See, the thing about Notre Dame, though, guys, and I think we can all kind of associate ourselves with this because we're all fans, right? The promise of tomorrow will always bring us back as Notre Dame fans, just like the Cubs and all that. And so we would still do this job, but it would be tough. I mean, you guys have seen me on post-game shows. I don't do well with losses, so it would be very difficult to deal with that kind of a thing. So, it would be tough.
Jeff, and this was what I was referring to. Clemson, Florida State, Miami, North Carolina, NC State, Virginia Tech. They've met with their lawyers about getting out of the ACC deal. Notre Dame could walk if that was to happen, correct? Clemson only team that benefits Notre Dame. Yeah, if that happened, if you had some mass exodus from the ACC and all those teams actually could get out of it, I believe in that case, yes, Notre Dame could walk. I just think this is it's pretty bottom line. There just aren't any outs for these teams other than paying boatloads of money to get out
Right.
of this deal. They signed on, they took the guaranteed money like the whole conference did up front, and that's
Right.
why they're in the situation that
Yeah.
they're in right now. You know, like
Exactly.
now like Clemson and Florida State are a couple of these. The rest of these I think are along with them, but I put Clemson and Florida State at the front of the list in terms of like they feel like they make the most of the money for the conference, and the revenue share needs to be divvied out differently. Like,
Right.
it needs to be weighted. I think that's part of the deal that they're looking at. But yeah, if they all bolted, yeah, then that gives Notre Dame an out. But then the question is, does Notre Dame, where's Notre Dame going to go? The Big Ten would probably be it in that case. But I just personally, from everything that I've seen, I'm not a lawyer and I haven't looked at it, but just the more you read as you kind of do your background on this, I don't think anything is going to get
Yeah.
these teams out of it other than paying way more money
Oh,
than
it's
any of them are willing to pay.
a huge
Yeah,
buyout. I mean,
that's why they're mad.
these schools don't have the financial backing that like a Notre Dame does. So you're really going to be hurting a lot of people at the university, if you're paying that out fee, whatever it happens to be. It's just, it's a lot of posturing, maybe they're checking it out or whatever, but I don't see it happening either.
We started off talking about Rhode Island graduate transfer Antonio Carter. Shout out Rhode Island School of Design, RISD. Made famous, of course, some wedding crashers. Shout out to RISD. Well done. Well done, Derek, as always.
Yes.
All right, well, that's going to do it for tonight. Had a good one. Appreciate you being here tonight. Hit that like button on your way out. And, of course, subscribe, rate, review, leave a comment, whatever it happens to be. What are you chuckling at?
Oh, just some of the comments. Cracking me up.
All right, we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.